Satoru Gojo is the embodiment of power in Jujutsu Kaisen. He is leaps and bounds above any other sorcerer in the entire series. He is a statistical anomaly with not only god-given powers but an insane IQ and mindset which has allowed him to enhance his skills exponentially over time. Gojo went from a grade 1 sorcerer in his first year at Jujutsu High to one of the strongest sorcerers in the entire series within 1 year of training. However, this isn't to say that Gojo will remain at the top for the rest of time. It's actually implied that Gojo will one day be surpassed by a select few Jujutsu High students, and I want to discuss who actually has the potential to achieve this insane feat. Just quickly, I need to go over the strength of Gojo, so you can have a rough idea of how powerful these sorcerers need to become to even equal Satoru Gojo. Gojo has a seemingly infinite amount of cursed energy, with his total energy second to only Yuta, and Yuta is said to have access to an unlimited amount of cursed energy. The reason that it's believed that Gojo has infinite cursed energy is because even if he was to attempt to exert all of his cursed energy, it still wouldn't be enough to fully empty his reserves. And this is part of his innate technique, the Six Eyes. The Six Eyes grants him with the ability to constantly run his cursed techniques around the clock whilst minimalising his cursed energy output. Being the strongest sorcerer alive puts a huge target on your back, so it's no wonder why Gojo has to take such precautions. So Gojo inherited the Limitless. This technique comes from the Gojo family, which grants the user the ability to manipulate space at an atomic level using cursed energy manipulation. Due to the nature of Limitless, it has 3 standard techniques, these being Infinity, Curse Technique Blue, and Curse Technique Reversal Red. I'm sure you all know roughly what these do, so I won't go into too much detail, but I want to show the general premise of these abilities. So Infinity means that Gojo can make the distance between him and an object infinite, meaning that the object can no longer touch him. He can use Blue to produce a vacuum in which the universe will try and correct the vacuum by filling in the negative space, which causes all the matter within the vacuum that Gojo creates using Blue to be pulled into a central point. And Red is the complete opposite of Blue, meaning that rather than pulling in objects, he would repel these objects, meaning that he can supply a huge force to anything he wants to. Hollow Purple is a combination of blue and red, and is used literally to delete mass and objects from existence, or whatever the Hollow Purple actually touches. Gojo was born with the Six Eyes, which means that he can minimalise his cursed energy output to almost zero. For making all cursed energy which is outputted 100% useful energy, this means that absolutely no cursed energy is wasted and is the epitome of efficiency. This has meant that throughout all of his fights, Gojo has never and will never run out of cursed energy. This is why Gojo is so OP, because Limitless is a very draining technique on the user's cursed energy. So Gojo is able to minimize the amount of cursed energy which is outputted from using these techniques, which is why he's such a strong sorcerer. It is also implied narratively that Six Eyes grants the user with the ability to perceive the world in terms of mass, speed, energy and so on, meaning that Gojo can manipulate all of these features of the universe and use it to his advantage, unlike anyone else in the series. Although most of this is implied rather than actually being stated in the manga. Despite all of these skills, Gojo still has access to a reverse curse technique and a domain expansion, Unlimited Void. Unlimited Void causes all users within the domain to receive an infinite amount of information which goes on endlessly. This means that the user's body is no longer able to process any neurological stimuli to move or react. All they can do is simply stare into the abyss. The domain, when unleashed for 0.2 seconds, was enough to hospitalise thousands of citizens, and it seems no matter the strength of the user, they are guaranteed to be affected by Unlimited Void. Geto stated that Gojo's skills and power could single-handedly end the entirety of humanity. Alright, so now we've broken down what these sorcerers need to surpass, let's get into who has the potential to actually achieve this insane feat. So first on this list is Yuta Okkotsu. Now for the basic abilities in which Yuta has access to, Yuta can utilise Reverse Curse Technique, which means that as long as his brain is not destroyed instantaneously, he can heal any wounds and become immune to any poisons that enter his body. We also saw in Season 0 that Yuta can utilise Black Flash, so I've done a whole video on mastering Black Flash and it's not impossible for Yuta to master it as well. If Yuta was to master Black Flash, then upon using it, he will bring out 120% of his maximum potential. Not only this, but his physical attributes and striking power will be amped by 2.5 times, which will make him significantly stronger. So now let's get on to the Queen of Curses, the Vengeful Spirit, Rika. Rika is able to be summoned by Yuta in her full form at any time. The reason Rika works so well in conjunction with Yuta's abilities is she is able to store any of Yuta's curse techniques, which he has copied. Yuta can supply Rika with some of his cursed energy, which Rika can then use to shoot out a black energy blast, but this can only be done when Rika is fully manifested. Yuta has gathered many techniques, and one of his most frequently used is Cursed Speech, which a user can only combat by reinforcing their brain and ears with cursed energy. This means that it would theoretically break through Satoru Gojo's Infinity if the attack was potent enough. So if Yuta is able to increase the potency of his cursed speech, then that is definitely a way that he could surpass Gojo, as a relatively weak user of cursed speech, Inumaki is a grade 1 sorcerer just for having the technique. Yuta is able to bend the space around him, meaning that he can dodge any attacks as well as warping the space around him to speed himself up as well as pulling objects towards him. Now Yuta has many curse techniques, which is stored within Rika, and something which is often forgotten is Yuta has only been a sorcerer for 2 years now. With Yuta likely about to fight Kenjaku alongside Maki and Hakari, if Rika was able to bite Kenjaku and gain some of his DNA, Yuta would be able to copy every technique Kenjaku has gained over thousands of years. So if Yuta was to do this, being so Kenjaku is only second to Gojo and Sukuna, this could easily scale Yuta above Gojo in terms of power. Alright, next up we have Mr. Gambler himself, Hakari. Now, as we have only seen Hakari go all out once, we don't know the full extent of his abilities, but just going off what we know so far, it isn't a big reach to say that Hakari has the potential to surpass Gojo due to his insane abilities. Hakari was said to be a hugely important piece in stopping the Culling games. So what makes Hakari so strong? For starters, it is said that being hit by one of Hakari's punches is like being hit with a serrated bat. The idea of a serrated bat being that it has sharp, jagged edges which is used to rip apart whatever it comes into contact with. We saw that Hakari was able to throw around Yuji in their battle, dealing significant damage to Yuji with each blow, without even nearly putting everything he has into each punch. With Yuji's main feat of strength being his durability, it is no wonder that Hakari was so important in the Jujutsu Sorcerer's plan to end the Culling games. I'm going to discuss Yuji later, but dealing a lot of damage to Yuji in a few punches is no mean feat for any modern day sorcerer or cursed spirit. So Hakari's main feats come from his fight against Kashimo. Kashimo was a special grade sorcerer with only one goal in mind, and that be fighting Sukuna. When Kenjaku came across Kashimo 400 years prior, he threatened to kill Kenjaku, and Kenjaku believed that he probably would be able to, and said that Kashimo's skills were only second to Sukuna's. So Kashimo deemed Ryu to not even be a threat, who was the same person who pushed Yuta to his very limits. Hakari in his fight against Kashimo was able to dodge Kashimo's lightning bolt attacks, which is an insane feat as it's said that nobody had ever even came close to dodging this before Hakari. What makes Hakari so strong is his domain expansion. This would likely be the way that Hakari could surpass Gojo. So Idle Death Gamble is a gambling simulator where if the conditions for a jackpot are met, then it supplies Hakari with infinite cursed energy, and it will also heal Hakari indefinitely. We saw this against Kashimo, where he was healing his heavy wounds instantly, as well as simultaneously replenishing his cursed energy. Whilst in this mode, unless landing a direct blow that one-shots Hakari in the head, Hakari is seemingly indestructible. Hakari heals so fast that unless something like Gojo's Hollow Purple was to touch him, he wouldn't be able to be damaged. So the way Hakari would be able to surpass Gojo is actually a very interesting theory. So during one of Hakari's fights, he stated that he wasn't just lucky, but he uses his skill to take a hold of luck in every case scenario. This caused a theory to emerge that Hakari can rig his domain expansion so that he is guaranteed to win a jackpot. If this was the case, then he would be able to become truly indestructible. The only way to combat this would be to shut down his domain expansion, but even after doing that, his opponent would need to survive the next 4 minutes after Hakari's jackpot. If Hakari was to use something like a simple domain to breach Gojo's Limitless, or any other broken technique in the series, it would be no stretch to say that he would be able to surpass Gojo one day. The only problem with Hakari is his mindset. He has stated he's not interested in growing stronger unless he's given the fever or the rush of a life or death situation. So unless Hakari has a solid reason, he will likely not actually surpass his own limits. Next up we have Maki Zenin. So for this one, I think it is important to state that in order for a Yuta to surpass Gojo, they don't actually need to be able to defeat Gojo in a 1 vs 1. This was shown in Yuji vs Mahito, where I would say that Yuji likely isn't as strong as Mahito at the time of their fight, but still won due to his direct counter to Idle Transfiguration. So the reason I say this is because Maki literally has no answer for Gojo's infinity, meaning that she would never be able to land a blow on Gojo, and she would easily lose to him in the fight. But I still think she has the potential to surpass him in terms of power. So Maki recently unlocked True Heavenly Restriction, which is a binding on a body, which means that in exchange for the user's cursed energy, that same user will be granted with insane physical attributes. So Maki, after gaining Heavenly Restriction, would have insane speed, strength and reflexes, as well as enhanced senses and her prior fighting talent. Maki, after gaining Heavenly Restriction, speed blitz and one-shot a special grade 1 sorcerer, without even giving them time to react. Maki then went into the Zenin training area, where there was potentially 100 sorcerers, all quite skilled in hand-to-hand combat. Maki, however, did not struggle whatsoever, not only speed blitzing all of them, but even engaging in hand-to-hand combat without even receiving the slightest of scratches. After these assassinations, Maki had access to all of the Zenin clan's special grade curse tools, which will significantly boost her stats and her raw power when she fights. Maki was easily able to defeat a special grade curse womb after 2 weeks of unlocking this ability. Noya unlocked a new awakening, which meant that he was actually much faster, making his curse technique even more powerful. Noya managed to go beyond Mach 3, and was able to strike Maki whilst going at this speed. This understandably knocked Maki down, but she was able to easily get back up. While the fight is ongoing, Maki fights with a sumo wrestler, and she unlocks her fully realised version. With this new power, Maki was able to outpace the cursed womb, meaning that at minimum she was going beyond Mach 3. Maki is also now able to sense attacks without actually seeing the opponent by sensing changes in the atmospheric pressure. Also, due to Maki not having any cursed energy, she is able to go in and out of domain expansions, which is a completely broken ability and counters a lot of characters who are relying on their domain expansion. So if Maki was able to achieve all of these feats after 2 weeks of using her ability, imagine how strong she could be after a year of training. We also need to consider the fact that Maki can sense attacks without even seeing them, which is literally a broken ability which counters just about everything in the series. Using this ability, she was able to react to an attack going beyond Mach 3, despite not even being able to see which direction it was coming from. So those are my 3 candidates for surpassing Gojo. However, I also think that Yuji Itadori will be among those of the people who surpass him. I'll go quickly into why I think this is the case, although I've done an entire video on this, so once this video is done, go check that out to see a slightly more in-depth video on why Yuji will surpass Gojo. So looking at Yuji's potential, we can see that in 1 month, Yuji went from having no prior knowledge of the concept of cursed energy to a grade 1 sorcerer. And I would say in the next month he would probably scale to low special grade. This is because he was able to dent special grade curses such as Mahito and Hanami, with Hanami being stated to be even more durable than Jogo. And Yuji is just able to outclass a lot of special grade curses. It's likely that Yuji wouldn't struggle with any of the disaster curses. Yuji is able to keep up with the speed of Yuta, throw a few hands with him as well as tanking a lot of his blows. Yuji was able to deal significant damage to a special grade curse painting womb. Yuji was also able to damage Sukuna, albeit a weakened version, almost dealing equivalent damage to fully realised Heavenly Restriction Maki, with Yuji not even showing anywhere near his full potential as he never once carried out a Black Flash. Now stack all of this with Yuji unlocking Sukuna's crazy technique of either cleave and dismantle or stealing cursed techniques, as well as likely unlocking a reverse curse technique. On top of this, he is ingesting cursed objects, which is all but manga canon. Looking at Yuji's crazy growth, ability to house cursed objects and learn Sukuna's techniques, and his literal crazy physical attributes without even being a sorcerer, Yuji will surpass Gojo, mark my words. But that is all for this manga discussion. If you did enjoy this video, then make sure to smash the like button and subscribe. I'm going to be releasing more Jujutsu Kaisen manga theories, so stay tuned for them. Also, if you have any of your own theories which you want me to cover, then leave them in the comments down below, and I'll make sure that if I like the theory to cover them in a future video. But with that said, I will see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.